Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. The 2015 Liberal campaign platform promised revisions to the Conflict of Interest Act. The party promised to clarify the term personal benefit and to enforce and enhance post-employment restrictions on cabinet ministers and senior officials. Although there are indeed new restrictions on senior officials, for which I commend you, you have not yet enhanced restrictions on cabinet ministers. This is another instance of government approaching reform half-heartedly and protecting their own insiders. A question to the Premier. It's been 2.5 years since you were elected Premier. When do you intend to keep this promise?
Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the Third Party indicated, we moved within weeks of the 2015 election to extend conflict of interest regime to senior officials and to deputy ministers, and appointed Commissioner of Ethics and Integrity. And those indeed, Mr. Speaker, were steps that were taken right away to act on that promise and to continue to study and learn about any further measures that are needed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Premier. The Honourable Leader of the Third Party, your first supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we can study and learn from the 2015 annual report given by the Conflict of Interest Commissioner. And he made a number of recommendations to improve the Act by clarifying the language around personal benefit and enhancing the post-employment restrictions on cabinet ministers, which has still not been done. A question to the Premier. These are the same promises that you made in the Liberal Party platform. So when do you intend to implement all of the Commissioner's recommendations?
Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable members on all sides of the House will recognise, we are moving forward with a number of measures on openness and transparency and better government. We were on the floor last night with a whistleblower initiative, which is a big step for this province. As some have suggested, there's a lobbyist registration bill that will be introduced soon. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the measures that have been taken, we are moving very actively toward in all of these areas. And Mr. Speaker, there's the room for enhancement on the conflict. We may get to that because we've been very busy, and we were here last night, spent the whole 2 hours on the measures that are directed to openness and transparency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Third Party, your second supplementary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, indeed, we did spend 2 hours last night debating a very important bill, but this government has had over 2 years to implement the Conflict of Interest Commissioner's recommendations. He made many additional recommendations to allow members of the public, for example, to seek the opinion of the Commissioner, clarifying private interests and requiring the Act to be reviewed every 5 years. These will all improve something that this government loves to talk about, transparency and accountability, but sometimes does not actually implement things practically. A question to the Premier. You've had over 2 years to review these recommendations. Will you be introducing legislation to implement all of the Commissioner's recommendations in the spring 2018 legislative sitting, or will I have to?
Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Third Party, I'm sure, is well aware that he has the ability to introduce a private member's bill, and has indeed. But, Mr. Speaker, this is something that we're well aware of, the Commissioner's recommendations. We are acting on, I would say it's on the order of 8 to 10 fronts that we have acted on in greater openness and transparency, and the Commissioner's recommendations are under active consideration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Premier.